Hello again, I'm Chuck Todd, and welcome to another episode of Meet the Press Reports. Anyone can make it in America and make it big. That uniquely American idea has spawned many a get-rich-quick scheme and even some political careers. Some schemes started with an innovative product that just couldn't get off the ground. Some with a legitimate business that broke bad, and some were simply scams from the very beginning. Names like Elizabeth Holmes, Sam Bankman-Fried, and Bernie Madoff have dominated the headlines in recent years, and they're only the most prominent cases. Most alarming was the failure of the Food and Drug Administration and the Securities and Exchange Commission to fulfill their watchdog roles and shut down a couple of those well-known cons. How have corporate leaders and politicians alike been so successful at grifting the public out of both votes and dollars and keeping regulatory agencies asleep on their watch? How have we become, in many ways, a grifter nation?
You're going to get caught. One way or another. It's a mathematical fact. It's like Vegas. The house always wins.
The art of the con has fascinated the public in Hollywood for decades.
You want to be a grifter? Grifter. Yes.
But with trust in institutions eroding and the internet providing new opportunities to scam, grifters are showing up everywhere.
Just one drop of blood, and we can change the world.
A thief takes your money. A con artist or confidence man depends on persuading you, the mark, to give it to him or to her.
Con artists would not be successful if they weren't charismatic, if they didn't know how to manipulate you, if they didn't know how to manipulate your perception of them.
Maria Konnikova is a psychologist, also a professional poker player.
Maria Konnikova, who has only been playing poker for a year, wins $84,000.
And she's author of The Confidence Game, which explores the psychology of the con.
Playing God, feeling a sense of just control over other people's lives, right? You get to create a reality for other people to live in. That's a very heady feeling, and I think it's a feeling that most con artists can't ever give up once they have a taste of it.
Anna Sorokin served nearly 4 years in prison for financial fraud, including second-degree grand larceny, after tricking Manhattan's elite into believing she was a German heiress named Anna Delvey. In fact, she was born to middle-class parents outside of Moscow and grew up in Germany, where her father drove a truck and her mother owned a small convenience store. New York Magazine writer Jessica Pressler broke the story.
I met Anna Sorokin in 2017, shortly after she was arrested and remanded to Rikers Island. The district attorney's office had accused her of posing as a German heiress, opening an arts club in order to do a number of wild things, including taking $100,000 from a bank, tricking a private jet company into giving her a plane, which she took to Warren Buffett's shareholder meeting in Omaha, and trying to get a $22 million loan from an investment bank, Fortress.
Anna Sorokin's story is played out in fiction in the Netflix series Inventing Anna.
What's you wearing? You look Paul.
And on Saturday Night Live.
Run it on my card.
This is a Metro card.
Run it again!
You've had some complicated feelings about Anna in some ways. It sounds like you feel guilty making her famous.
I have struggled with it a little bit. I think it's kind of odd. I was surprised by the reception to it, that she was kind of embraced as this icon.
We love a rogue? Is that what's going on?
We love a rogue, and I think the characteristics of a rogue mirror what we admire in business, right? It's like ingenuity and cleverness and bootstrapping.
Sorokin is now under house arrest with an ankle bracelet over her immigration status as her legal battle to stay in the United States plays out.
Do you feel that you owe anyone an apology?
You mean for what? I'm not a 12-year-old kid to apologize. Who would I be apologizing to?
The banks that you tried to take the money from.
I don't think they care.
When the magazine story came out, she called me from Rikers Island and she said, only in America can, you can get like this kind of result, this like viral fame from like a crime. Only in America is that possible.
It didn't sound like she was lamenting,
she was not
oh
unpleased.
No, only in America do you go viral in this.
No,
it sounded like more like, how about that?
What a magical thing. That, you can make anything happen here.
This is the Theranos story.
It is.
Elizabeth Holmes, the founder of blood testing startup Theranos, was once worth $4.5 billion and celebrated as a woman who could own the future.
You founded this company 12 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Tell them how old you were.
I was 19.
So this is the little tubes that we collect the samples in. We call them the nanotainer. They're about this big.
You get the same results that you get for Theranos if, in fact, you went to a doctor and had him take a vial of blood from your veins.
We do.
But in 2015, the Wall Street Journal began unraveling the con, questioning whether Theranos' technology worked.
This is what happens when you work to change things. And first they think you're crazy, then they fight you, and then all of a sudden you change the world.
At the end of May, Holmes reported to prison after being sentenced to more than 11 years for defrauding investors, including media mogul Rupert Murdoch, Oracle's Larry Ellison, and the Walton family, founders of Walmart.
It kind of throws into question like the success of some successful people who we might resent for being successful.
Hey, famous people are just like us. I can get scammed, so can they.
Right.
Grifters thrive in the margins, and their unlikely success, pulling the wool over the eyes of the rich, powerful, and well-connected until a dramatic fall, is a dark expression of the American dream. Almost 14 years to the day after Bernie Madoff was arrested and charged with fraud in New York for orchestrating a $65 billion Ponzi scheme, Sam Bankman-Fried, the founder of the cryptocurrency exchange FTX, was charged. He faces 13 counts, including securities fraud, money laundering, and campaign finance violations.
Were you truthful with us today?
I was as truthful as you know, I'm knowledgeable to be. There's some things I wish I knew more about, but yes, I was.
And let me ask you this. Do you agree that over time you also lied?
Do I agree that I lied? I don't know of times when I lied. I think, look, there are certainly times when I was acting as a representative, as a marketer for FTX, and when I was looking for how can I, you know, in a way which is truthful, but, you know, paint FTX as, you know, compelling a way as possible.
Psychopathy definitely enables con artists to get away with things in their own mind, because you need to convince yourself that you're a good person, that you're not doing anything wrong. You don't feel guilt.
Billy McFarland pleaded guilty to fraud, including a ticket scam and bank fraud, and was sentenced to 6 years in prison after organizing the Fire Festival, promoted as the Coachella for the Bahamas.
Fire Festival has become synonymous with travel nightmares.
Before we had the worst luck, I think we had the best luck. And like it sounds crazy, but so many things had to go right to make it this big of a failure.
Some people have called you a sociopath. How do you respond to that?
You know, I don't think I'm a genius, I don't think I'm a sociopath, and I'm probably somewhere in the middle.
The things that they were promising were so incredible. It was like, how could this really be real? And once you left Instagram and went to like their actual website, it just, the whole pretense fell apart.
Journalist Gabrielle Bluestone.
On Instagram, there had been this trend of conspicuous consumption, where influencers were finding a lot of engagement by showing off excess and wealth and, you know, celebrity. And this festival kind of brought all of those things together and told people, like everyday, regular people, that like this could be your life too. All you have to do is buy this $1,000 ticket.
In her book, Hype, Bluestone argues that con artists like Billy McFarland, Anna Sorokin, Sam Bankman-Fried, and Elizabeth Holmes are not isolated incidents, but take advantage of a cultural shift where personality and experiences are curated, filtered, and hyped into a digital fantasy.
The heart of all scams, whether we're talking about today or 100 years ago, is the idea of selling people something that they want, a dream, something that they don't have access to. The combination of the way we use social media and then the way that you can market on social media has just been this, you know, accelerant that has made it so that, you know, as a scammer, you don't even have to put on pants. Like, you can do it all from home.
Frank Abagnale Jr., whose cons inspired the film Catch Me If You Can.
It's, sorry to say, but 4,000 times easier today than when I did it. Technology breeds crime. It always has, and it always will.
Politics, and particularly political fundraising, is also ripe for grift. New York Republican Congressman George Santos was recently charged with 13 counts of wire fraud, money laundering, stealing public funds, and lying to Congress about his finances. Prosecutors say Santos defrauded campaign supporters, telling donors their money would be used for election activities like campaign ads. And instead, he bought luxury clothes and paid off personal debts.
Why do you deserve to stay in this job, sir, when you're accused of lying to the House of Representatives?
Under pressure, Santos had already admitted he had lied about where he went to high school and college and about working on Wall Street.
Did I embellish my resume? Yes, I did. And I'm sorry.
And founding an animal charity. After saying his mother survived 9/11.
I am the grandchild of Holocaust survivors and the son of a 9/11 survivor.
Immigration records prove that was a lie, too. And then there's Santos's religion.
I've always joked with friends and circles, even in the campaign, I'd say, guys, I'm Jewish. Remember, I was raised Catholic. So, look, I understand everybody wants to nitpick at me. I've been a terrible liar on those subjects.
Where do we go for accountability? Because I think that's what we're all looking for here. In theory, the government is supposed to have some guardrails in place to protect us against consumer scam. You know, you have an FTC. In theory, it's there, but it feels like more than just a game of whack-a-mole.
We are supposed to have these protections, but they aren't really protecting us. If you look at some of the biggest scams and frauds of like the last 10 years, what they're ultimately charged with for the most part, it's not defrauding regular consumers, it's lying to investors. That's really when the government steps in and gets involved, when professionally wealthy people are affected by it.
In the end, con artists depend on the human assumption that most people are telling the truth. The human mind wants to believe.
Exactly. You know on one level that if it looks too good to be true, it probably is. But everyone wants to believe that they're the exception to the rule and that this is that moment that you've been waiting for.
Somebody wins the lottery.
Yeah. Usually it's the scammer, though, unfortunately, in these cases.
So joining me now is a man who has lived both the political and business worlds. He's experienced the grift firsthand. Anthony Scaramucci was President Trump's White House communications director for a very short time, 11 days. And he's also the co-founder of the investment firm Skybridge Capital. Scaramucci was a mentor and friend to Sam Bankman-Fried and has said he feels betrayed by the fraud at FTX. Anthony, welcome. Good to see you.
It's good to be here, even under these circumstances.
Look, I appreciate you coming because I wanted you to help us tell the story of how you got taken in by Sam Bankman-Fried. You were very forthcoming about this in quite a few. You know, you believed. How did he
well, I appreciate the opportunity to tell a story because if my story can save one person from hitting the trip wires that we hit at Skybridge or other people, friends of ours, then it's a very valuable story to tell. But I think it's a simple story. You know, Sam is a very bright person. He was early in the cryptocurrency markets. He had developed what ultimately had the second largest exchange in cryptocurrency according to market share. And he had made himself a lot of money. But what happened to Sam, unfortunately, and I don't know exactly when the nefariousness kicked in, he made a decision that he was going to use his clients' money as a piggy bank for his personal trading.
Right.
And that is a cardinal sin of fraud. It's the cardinal sin of Wall Street, et cetera. And he created a very elaborate backdoor accounting system. So if you were one of the VCs that backed him, over $1 billion went into the company, 25 of the most renowned VCs in the world, including sovereign wealth funds, gave him the money. If you went into his control room, Chuck, you saw this very pristine accounting system. Yeah. You saw a young...
You did your due diligence.
We did. No, we did a
you
tremendous
really,
amount.
I mean, when you think back now, what's the yellow flag you think you missed?
The short circuit between him and his three cohorts. And so I think one of the very big learning lessons from this fraud, and I think financial frauds in general, you need a very small group of people to commit a fraud. Think of Bernie Madoff as an example. It was him, his brother, his assistant, an accountant over the Tappan Zee Bridge, close circle. He wasn't using PricewaterhouseCoopers. There'd be just too many people there, and there's always one person of conscience that would say, hey, I'm uncomfortable with this. And so Sam had 4 people he was working with outside of his compliance department, outside of his legal team, that he perpetrated this with, 3 of which have already pled out and pled guilty.
When you went in with him, you went all in. I mean, you gave him the possibility of potentially buying your firm out. Buying your fund out.
Thankfully, there was a slight piece of caution there because when I met with Sam in August of 2022 in the Bahamas, the notion was that he was going to buy all of Skybridge, and he wanted to give me FTX stock for it. I looked at Sam and said, listen, I'm 35 plus years in the business. Right. If you want to buy a piece of it for cash, I believe in gradualism, let's go slow. that would be better for me, and we can get our relationship started. We really like each other. I'll give you the option to buy the remaining shares. So I did go all in, but thank God I had some caution, not based on Sam, by the way.
Yeah.
I bought into Sam,
But
and I
did you,
believe Sam.
it's interesting. You were
just natural
2022
caution.
wasn't a great year.
Terrible year for me.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Animal
it was
was
a tough year.
horrible.
Look, it was a tough year.
As the Queen used to say, it was
Right.
a very bad year.
Yeah, I think she might say that.
Yeah.
But did you end up do you think in hindsight you overlooked some things with Sam and FTX because, boy, you were looking for the next big thing?
No question. No, listen, I mean, I thought Sam was the Mark Zuckerberg of crypto. He was a brilliant guy. If you sat at a table with him and he elucidated the vision that he had for the cryptocurrency businesses and the eventual tokenization of assets, he was creating the modern New York Stock Exchange. Remember, our stock exchange is 1790 for the New York one. The CME is 1890. Sam was moving things into the 22nd century, and he was brilliant. But when you're brilliant and flawed, or brilliant and malevolent, or you're emotionally detached from others, you know, the best I can say about him is maybe he had this God complex where he thought, oh, it's okay to take Chuck and Anthony's money, temporarily put it in my account. When I save the world, I'll give it back to them.
You think he probably thought, oh, I'm just borrowing this money, I'll always give it back.
Well, that's what they do. They have this semblance in their personalities. Chuck is fine. I'm a genius. I'm a guru. I'm going to take Chuck's money, put it in my account, make a gajillion, and give Chuck his money back. No one will be worse for the wear, but it never works like that, as you know.
You told this tale of taking him around the world, essentially. Some of the biggest and most important sovereign funds and leaders, NBC, MBS, Saudi Arabia, UAE.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an amazing ability. He basically used you to get to these people.
Listen,
I know he was a well-known person, but without you, he doesn't get there.
Yeah, listen, he had a high profile. He could have gotten to places, but I had long-term relationships. One of the ideas of selling my company to him was there was a generational transfer of knowledge and contacts, and he was somebody that I genuinely liked. I was close to his dad, Joe Bankman, a tenured university professor at Stanford Law School.
So in that sense, you felt like, well, I know his stock. Right?
I
don't know him, but I know his dad, and his dad seems like...
I got it wrong. I got it wrong side of other people. It doesn't excuse the fact that I got it wrong. I own the fact that I got it wrong. But here's the good news: when you have great relationships, if you're introducing him to the president of the UAE, Mohammed bin Zayed's reaction was, "I'm sorry this is happening to you, Anthony. How can I help you?"
Interesting.
You see what I'm saying? And so
they don't feel taken by you. They don't feel angry. Are they angry at him?
No,
Did he make some enemies?
I think the good news is obviously none of them made the investment. I think the good news is that trip that you're referencing that I took him to the Middle East uncovered the fraud. He had said some things about one of his competitors, who was the founder of Binance, that he didn't like. The Binance
Is it on that trip that you started to wonder, did I make a bad bet?
No, I've got to always be upfront about this. When the scandal started to erupt, I had made the assumption, based on our due diligence, he had the capital to meet the liquidity requirements. It didn't dawn on me until Tuesday morning, November the 8th. I had booked myself on a JetBlue flight to the Bahamas to meet with him, to square up with him, Chuck, face to face. And it was there in that moment that I realized, okay, he broke the code of conduct. He broke the terms of service at FTX, and he's probably going to go to jail for a very long time.
I'm going to make you answer this shortly. Is Donald Trump a grifter?
Yeah, he's a different type of grifter than Sam Bankman-Fried, but yes, he's a grifter. They have the same chemistry, these types of people. They objectify human beings. They don't look at you or me as flesh and blood and develop empathy for us. They see us as either means to get them to a place that they need to get to, and therefore then they can immediately discard you, or they'll run over you with indiscrimination. So yes, he's a grifter. There's something a little meaner about Donald Trump than Sam Bankman-Fried, because Donald Trump, he really wants to hurt people. You know, he excites the racism. He excites the division. He brings out, Sam was really playing a video game and seeing if he could score more points than the rest of us. Donald Trump is more in that political sociopathic behavior, where he wants power over other things that are probably more important than power.
Anthony Scaramucci, Thanks for sharing the story.
Hey, it's good to be here. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
All right, my friend. When we come back, an expert on the art of the con will tell us why they do it and how not to get caught in their web. Welcome back. Our next guest appeared in the story we aired earlier, speaking about the pathology of the con artist. We brought back Maria Konnikova back to tell us more about their traits and how, frankly, what you could do to not become their next mark. Konnikova, of course, is a psychologist, a journalist, a poker player, and author of a number of books, including The Confidence Game. Welcome back to Meet the Press Reports. Good to see you, Maria.
Good to see you too, Tom.
Let me start with what a grifter is looking for. What's the type of person that you think is most susceptible to a grift?
You know, the funny thing is, I think, first of all, we're all susceptible. And one of the things that makes us more susceptible is when we don't think we're susceptible. So there's this wonderful quote that I came across in older books that the New Yorker is actually the best mark because he fancies himself so incredibly savvy that no one's ever going to take advantage of him. And so for the grifter, that's your golden ticket. That's your perfect artist mark, because someone who doesn't think they're capable of getting conned, someone who thinks they're smart, someone who thinks that they have one over on you, they're the ones that are most susceptible to getting conned. And when you look at the profiles of con artists, they can be very well educated, they can have not gone to school, they can have an incredible financial savvy or not know the next thing about investing. There is a con out there for everyone. And that's something that was actually very intriguing to me because I always assumed that when I looked into it, I'd be like, oh, okay, you know, if you're gullible, you're more likely to be conned. Absolutely not true.
You know, you said something to me, I remember earlier when you said you were doing your research on these con artists and you had to stop talking to them. Why?
Yeah. They are incredibly charismatic. They have this gravitational pull that makes you like them, that makes you want to be their friend. And so when I was writing The Confidence Game, I met with a lot of con artists, and some of them I met with in prison, right? They'd been caught. I knew they were bad guys. I knew that these were not people to be trusted. And I found myself, as I was interviewing them, thinking things like, oh, well, you know, maybe your victims really did have it coming. Maybe you really didn't do anything wrong. Maybe it's really not that bad. Oh, I can see your side of things. And when you catch yourself thinking things like this, that's when it's time to pull back and say, whoa, what's happening to me? I'm being pulled into this gravity that they have around them. I'm being pulled into this charm. And there was one who I told you about earlier, which was the scariest moment. It was this older guy, and I was like, I want you to be my grandfather. You know, he was like 80 years old. He's like, come to my house, you know, I'll teach you all of these card tricks. I'm like, yes, that sounds like fun, let's go. And then I was like, no, Maria, let's not go. You shouldn't be doing this.
Let me run through some of these con artists. Elizabeth Theranos. And you talk about not wanting to interview somebody. A lot of people think the New York Times recently got conned.
I absolutely think the New York Times got conned. I actually cannot believe, and I'm someone who has written for the New York Times many, many times and have a good relationship with them, but I could not believe they ran that piece because that's exactly what the con artist wants, to be humanized. And I can't believe, call me Liz, like, give me a break. Come on, it makes me want to swear because she is someone who was such just a bad, bad, bad human being. Because if you think about, you know, on the scope of con artists, right, you have con artists who can trick you out of, you know, a little bit of money, you know, 3-card Monty on Canal Street in New York, right? Okay, you lose $10, no big deal. You thought you could beat them, you can't. She was playing with human lives. She was promising test results with people who were sick, who had terminal diseases potentially, who needed actual medical screening. And she pretended that this was real even when she knew her results were not real and that people were relying on them for real things. So she was playing God, literally, life and death. And now here's the New York Times saying, call me Liz. Oh, look at her. Look at these pretty pictures. Doesn't she look great in this photograph? And now you can see how her whole image has shifted. No more black turtlenecks. Now we've got the soft colors. We've got the waves. The voice changes. That's crazy.
George Santos.
George Santos, my. I mean, we know his name really is George Santos, right? Even though he's gone by, we think, because nothing else about him is real. From, you know, high school, college, sports he played, things he did, animal charities. It's one of these things where he started out small, as so many con artists do, and he didn't get caught. And when he got caught, people looked the other way. And so he kept doing it, and he kept getting more and more brazen. And I don't actually think that he was being delusional when he did it, because he was doing a very normal risk assessment, cost benefit. Okay, here are the benefits. I'm getting elected. You know, people are buying into the story. They think that I'm actually going to be good at this. What's the cost? Oh, well, some people found out that I was lying about this thing and they didn't say anything. They didn't do anything. They just let me get away with it. And so I'm in this political realm where everyone bends the truth a little bit, so they have a little bit of a carte blanche to do this. And so he kept going further and further and further. And at first it didn't matter that much, small local office. And now look at where we are. It's one of these things where
he was too
the further
successful.
you go with it.
The irony is if he had lost by a percentage point, he'd still be going. Maria Konnikova, author of The Confidence Game. Thanks very much.
Thank you for having me, Chuck.
That's all for Meet the Press Reports this week. Thanks for being here. In our next episode, we're going to look at one of the most sensitive issues that has faced this country, honestly, for decades. Reparations for African Americans. Should there be compensation for a history of slavery and racist government policies in the United States? That's next time on Meet the Press Reports. And I'll see you Sunday on Meet the Press.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.